I'm Paul Antonio. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Are you having a good show?
Excellent, thank you. So tell us about yourself and your background.
I trained as a calligrapher, gilder and heraldic artist. I went to Reading and studied letterform history at Reading, so I have a very strong academic background in writing. And then I went to Reigate to study calligraphy, gilding and heraldic painting. And I specialized in historical materials and techniques. I then went on to Birkbeck and studied manuscript history, English manuscript history, and archaeological illustration. And then from there I went and worked in a pyramid drawing hieroglyphs, which is always fun. I'm also one of the 4 Crown Office scribes, so I write some of the laws that the Queen signs when people become lords and ladies and that kind of thing. So that keeps me a little bit tied up. And that's fun. You know, I get to see some really beautiful documents. I started working with Spellbinders last year. They asked me to headline on their new Glimmer hot foil system. So this year we've added a bulk of new plates. So we call these plates as opposed to dies, just to keep the distinction. And so these foiling plates are really beautiful, and they use my calligraphy and my illustration rather than typography or fonts or anything. So I handwrite all the work and digitize it, and then we turn it into these plates. We've done some really great stuff this year. I've also had my first line of stamps out, yay! And some dies, and one of the dies makes a little booklet. So you can, it scores and punches the holes for the paper, and you fold it, and then you just stitch it together with through three holes, and you have this really beautiful booklet. And that, you know, it sort of shows why I design the way I design. You know, I trained as a scribe. And my mind is always about how to get people to use what I design as a writing system. How does that writing work? Why does it work the way it works? You know, how do people get it to the point where they can embellish it? So that's me.
And how are you finding transitioning into the paper crafting industry?
I'm not so sure if I'm transitioning into the paper crafting industry. You know, I design the stuff I design. But you know, I teach classes all over the world. I teach calligraphy classes all over the world. And so I meet a lot of calligraphers, and it's about talking to the calligraphers who do crafting to see how to get them to use more calligraphy in their crafting. And a lot of calligraphers who do crafting, they don't use calligraphy in their crafting because they can do the writing themselves. But when they have writing of a different order to add to their crafting, it sort of changes the way they interact with it. There is a lot in this industry, to this industry. It's a huge industry. It's not really my industry. And I'm very conscious about the fact that you can't do everything. So I only do the little bit that I know. You know, I'm very good at what I'm very good at, and that's it. So to now have to learn a whole new industry, and of course, you know, being obsessive compulsive, I just can't learn a little bit of something. I have to throw myself at it. So I've had to be very conscious about not letting all of this stuff overtake my life. And you know, Spellbinders have been brilliant. They've given me a Platinum 6 to play with, and I have my own hot foiling glimmer plate to play with because I need to see how my plates look. And it's how do I use my specific understanding and knowledge and technology and apply it to this industry, rather than really sort of letting the industry sort of drive me a little bit crazy. Because there's so much here. I mean, you could really go crazy here.
And many crafters find calligraphy and hand lettering and those kinds of things very intimidating. I mean, do you have any suggestions or tips for how they can kind of get started and get over that kind of hump of getting started?
I think the first problem with calligraphy is people try to do something that is too difficult for them to do. Because they pick up a pen and they want to write with it. Well, you can't even do that with a pencil. So what makes you think that you can get away with it with a pen? Then, of course, you struggle with the tool because you don't understand how the tool works on the surface. You don't understand how the tool works. You have no concept of a letter form in your mind, because every time you write a letter, it's different. So you have no tools to actually make writing work with a difficult tool. So I always tell students, you know what, start simple. Pick up a pencil, spend some time with the pencil, write out your alphabet. And you will find, whilst writing out your alphabet in separate letters, that there are letters that you have to think about. If you have to think about a letter, there is no way you can write it easily because it's not in your mind. So you then need to spend the time rewriting your alphabet and getting to terms with it again. You know, if, for instance, during the course of this conversation, I keep saying to you, write an A, write an A. If I did that 10 times, your A's would be 10 different A's. And they really should be the same A, because writing should be an unconscious thing. So if your letter forms do not naturally come to you unconsciously, and you're working with a difficult tool, and you probably haven't even tested the tool to make sure that that tool works well on that paper. So you've done all this beautiful work, and then you pick up a tool and you think, oh, it's ink, it's paper, it'll work. And it doesn't work. So there's a lot of pre-prepping. It's not even, you know, it's really quite amazing how trying to get people to see the simpler things that they have to approach before they try the more complex things. Don't pick up a pen and try and write it on a piece of paper. Get some sample sheets, get some test sheets, and just see what the tool can do. See if you can remember what the tool can do. You know, if you're making an A and you're using a slightly flexible brush pen, can you reproduce that shape consistently? Now, some people prefer to have a little bit more inconsistency in the way that they write the letter forms, and that's great. But if you like that, you know, brilliant. I'm happy for you. But if you prefer something a little bit more accurate, don't assume that the tool will do the work for you, because you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. Take it slow, breathe while you're writing. Some people are writing and their tongue's out their mouth, and you want them. You want to be relaxed. You want to sit up and sit away from the table. If you're down on the table like this, you can't see what you're doing. You can't see the surface, and more importantly, you can't see where you're going to. So being away from the work gives you the ability to write smoothly, to breathe, to relax. And writing is all about being relaxed. If you're not relaxed, it shows in the writing.
Okay. And of course, you came out with your manual last year as well.
So excited. So happy about that. So we're just working on releasing an e-version of the manual. And as we've been working on the e-version of the manual, I've had to go through the manual, and I'm going through the manual and I'm like, all right, so we need 10 more pages here and maybe 7 pages here, and we could do with 2 more pages on this particular thing. So the manual's sort of growing as I'm going through it. So I know we will do a second edition, but that's not going to be for maybe another 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So, and the manual's great. I've had some amazing feedback on it. Lots of people who have gotten copies have messaged me to say, you know, it's really changed the way they approach copperplate script. And you know, coupled with the manual, we have the manual on the pascribe.us site. And we also have a ton of free guidelines. So you download the guidelines and you slowly work through the structure of the guidelines. And each type of guideline assists you in a slightly different way. So, you know, I looked at the script the same way I think about how people should learn, you know, by looking at increments. And that's been fascinating. It's been really wonderful to see something, you know, in print changing the way people work. I've had lots of beginners message me to say they'd never picked up a pen. And I had one guy send me an image of a picture that he'd done, and he'd never done calligraphy. And in 3 months, what he did from a book was pretty impressive. It was really heartwarming. I was really touched by it.
It's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.